Assalamu alaikum everyone. May Allah protect us against the Dajjal and following of our deen becomes easy for all of us. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidna ilma. Since this is the second part of Surah Al-Kahf, let's quickly revise the background. As we all know, that Surah Al-Kahf was revealed as answer to three questions asked by Quraysh Makkah. They wanted to in a way prove that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the false prophet. So firstly, whenever the name of our prophet comes up, we must say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the shortest form of Durood which you can say in his name. So, recitation of Surah Al Kahf enlightens your week from one Friday to a next Friday. And learning first 10 verses of this surah will protect you against the Dajjal. So, the Dajjal will deceive man by using four tools. They are religion, wealth, knowledge, and authority. So now continuing with our second story, which appears in Surah Al-Kahf from verses 32 onwards. This story centers on greed and temporary nature of wealth and assets, which is in fact one of the tools used by the Dajjal to deceive man. Now, if we make a comparison with the first story regarding the companions of the cave, in that case, the story started with a test that these young men had to endure, and it ended with Allah's mercy being bestowed upon these young men because they remained steadfast in their belief. In this case, the story starts with Allah's mercy and it ends up with a very difficult test that Allah flicks on the person who has been ungrateful and denied God. So, in other words, in the beginning of the story, there are two men who are having a discussion on the day of judgment. One of them is the owner of two beautiful gardens, and there is a river flowing between the two gardens. Now, as I narrate this story, please try to picture it in your mind. This will help you understand the story better, inshallah. Allah describes the beauty of these gardens because it is Him who granted them barakah. Allah is the Supreme who gave us everything. He is the sustainer. So Allah illustrates that the two gardens were blessed with two precious and the most expensive fruit called grapes and dates. So before we proceed further into the story, let me tell you some benefits and interesting facts about them. Grapes are fruit of vine plant. They keep blood sugar low. They are good for the brain and they improve your sleep and protect your eyes. There are around 8,000 different varieties of grapes, and the list goes on and on. Now, dates are the most favorite fruit of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, a house which has a date tree will never face hunger. He also urged Muslims to eat them in odd numbers. He would not proceed on a day of Eid al-Fitr to mosque until he had eaten some dates. Subhanallah. Now imagine this is what Allah had blessed that man with. So Allah is saying, we present to them an example of two men. We granted to one of them with two gardens of grapevines and bordered them with date palm trees and placed between them fields of crops. Each of the two gardens produced its fruit and did not fall short thereof in anything. And we caused to gush forth within them a river. So these gardens were the constant source of income for him. So, in the course of discussion taking place between both of them, the wealthy owner of the gardens he belittles his companion by gloating over his beautiful property and said, I am greater than you in wealth and mightier in numbers of men. And while he entered his garden, he said, I don't think this garden will ever perish, and I do not think the hour will come. And even if I should be brought back to my Lord, I will surely find better than this as in return. He became so arrogant that he made this mistake of thinking that his gardens will never perish. His pretentious attitude of arrogance implies that he attributes the success of his gardens to himself, and he disbelieved in the day of judgment as well. So this man was deluded by the ease and goodness that he had in this world. On the other hand, his humble companion, the second individual, is not blessed with as much of wealth or assets, but had a lot of tawakkul and trust on Allah. Instead of complaining to Allah or feeling jealous at the magnificent gardens Allah has bestowed upon his companion, he said, "Have you disbelief in Allah, who created you from the dust and semen and then proportioned you as a man? But as for me, He is my Lord, my Allah, and I do not associate with my Allah anyone. And why did you, when you entered your garden, not say, MashaAllah? What Allah willed had occurred. There is no power except Allah." So as to acknowledge that it is the Creator that has allowed his garden to flourish in the first place. Then he said, "Although you see me less than you in wealth and children, maybe my Lord may give me something better than your gardens, and will send upon it a calamity from the sky, and it will become a smooth, dusty ground. Or perhaps its water will become sunken into the earth, so you will never be able to seek it." So this man never for a second complains to Allah that how come you have given this man so much and so less to me. Nor he prayed that Allah give me something like this man. He understands that the two gardens his companion has is not a blessing but is actually a test. The more you have, the more you have been tested. This man might not have more wealth, but definitely has a lot of wisdom. And at the same time, he is trying to admonish his companion that because you are ungrateful, Allah might test you just to remind you that everything in this world is temporary, including your gardens. So eventually, the gardens do get inflicted with a severe calamity. Its fruits were encompassed by ruins, and it collapsed upon its trellises, and everything is destroyed. The owner began to turn hands about in dismay over his lost investment, while simultaneously acknowledging that help and protection can only come from God. So, despite his abundance in men, he was unable to save his gardens. There, the authority is completely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the best in reward and best in outcome. Again, here is this interesting point. As soon as his garden got destroyed, he didn't say, "I wished I believed in Allah." Instead, he said, "I wished I had not attributed anything to God." So, this again reinforces the fact that he did in fact believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was not an atheist. The problem was that he was worshipping the material things in world more than he should have been worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a more subtle sort of shirk that he couldn't see himself engaged in. In addition to the fact that wealth and assets are temporary, this story is teaching us that wealth is as much a test as poverty is. So when people are endued with multiple assets and multiple resources, they're actually been tested with regards to how would they choose to spend the gifts that Allah has given them and how grateful they would be for Allah's blessings. Those who fail to see wealth as a test will of course strive for luxury and comfort. They will lose focus on the purpose of their creation. They will strive for this world instead of the next world. But inevitably, all things worshipped beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may it be stone idols, human beings, whether it's property, assets of this world, everything has to perish. They all represent falsehood, just like previous story where we had this emperor Datius and all of his gods that eventually perished. The two gardens were also eventually destroyed. Only thing that is permanent is our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All these lessons can be extended to the fitna of Dajjal. As we all know, Surah Al Kahaf is associated with protecting ourselves from the fitna of Dajjal. What can we learn from the second story? The wealth and assets that Dajjal will use to beguile people will only be an effective strategy to allure the materialists, the people who love this world, who fail to understand that everything in this world is temporary. Their hearts have become blinded, that they are unable to understand that assets will perish eventually. These are the people who are in love with status, power, and wealth. They might be calling themselves Muslims, they might be doing their 5 times prayers, paying zakat, fasting, everything, but their hearts are consumed in this world. They strive for more power, more wealth, and status. In fact, a hadith proves that Dajjal will grant wealth in abundance to those who believe in him, commanding the sky to rain and providing people with sustenance. Only those who believe in him will follow him. And at the same time, he will punish those people who disbelieve in him with famine and drought. So the desire for wealth will cause many people to go astray. In contrast, the believers who remain steadfast and patient will prioritize their faith over and above the comfort of this world, who practice Tawheed and Tawakkul in its true sense. They will be successful in this life and the next. Not only they will be able to identify the Dajjal, but their conviction and determination will be so strong, regardless of how tempting his offers might be, that they will be able to protect themselves from fitna of Dajjal. The only reason they will be able to do it is because they don't love this world so much. In the end, we too must check ourselves. Are we boasting too? Are we too striving for more wealth, more power, and status? Sadly, even today, among us, we can find people like King Datius and the man with the two gardens. In our society, we can sorrowfully see people boasting about their high budgeted weddings, their expensive cars, watches, and astaghfirullah, now we have Hajj packages as well. What else is left? We can see vehicles of bodyguards pushing common men away from the cars of people in power. We too think all of this will prevail. We too think all of this will not perish. Another moral point which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is conveying to us and which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to reflect upon is that whatever success we have in our life is due to the will of Allah. May it be our houses, our lands, our children, our health, our good looks, our success in studies or any other field of life is not due to our hard work. So we must be humble and must say, MashaAllah, whenever we see which Allah has bestowed upon us. So this summer, show empathy towards the people who are traveling on a bike directly under the sun while you sit comfortably in your car. May Allah grant us all contentment and may we strive for the next world. May Allah grant us the ability to practice our faith in its true sense and protect us against the Dajjal. May Allah enable the nur of this Quran to penetrate our hearts and may Allah grant us all forgiveness. Ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.